Hey guys, welcome to the Let's Talk podcast. In this episode of the depression series, we're going to continue discussing the effects depression had on us.
Yeah, and as always, we'd just like to say these are just our own thoughts and opinions, and we'll be mainly speaking through our experiences with depression.
Yeah, so continuing on from the last episode, what other effects did you have through your depression journey?
I think one of the main ones I'd say was that I definitely started to feel that I was trapped in my own head.
How would you describe that?
I think it's a bit difficult to explain, but for me I sort of felt very tunnel visioned in my thinking, and what I mean by that is I feel my depression had become very strong at controlling my thoughts and so on, and that when anything would happen, it would manipulate it into how it wanted me to think straight away, and that was obviously in a very negative way, and I just felt like I couldn't see past that or escape that feeling or those thoughts when they came in.
Yeah, that sounds very frustrating that you actually couldn't, you had, like, it always was negativity in your head.
Yeah, and obviously, and that's why I feel like, I was so, like down a lot and moody, is because no matter what would happen, be it a positive or a negative, the first feelings and the first thoughts that would come in and would last, for hours, days, or whatever, would always be negative, and it just starts to, grind you down after a while. It's just like I couldn't look forward to anything or enjoy anything because I thought the first thing I'm going to think or feel is negative, because that's what my depression wants.
Yeah.
Would you say that's something you also felt?
Yeah, I did experience that, to a degree as well. And I feel like if I was to describe it, I would have described it how you have just. So, yeah.
And with that, something I also felt when I was in this, I feel like it was making me feel very lost within myself. Did you feel similar?
Yeah, that is something I definitely felt when I, was suffering with depression. And it was, when I say lost, I mean lost as a person in myself.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't know who I was, so I didn't know, my personality. I didn't know, like, what I liked or my interests. It's like I just didn't have a clue what type of person I was.
And that sounds like quite a confusing and frustrating point or time in life, because it feels like you didn't, in a sense, know what you wanted to do, or if you truly liked something or disliked something. And with that, do you feel that as much as you didn't get to know yourself, did you really want to? Because if your depression was in that much control, did you want to get to know this version of yourself that you felt you were becoming?
Well, because I was, suffering with depression for about, throughout all my teenage years, and I feel like that is a prime time to actually start discovering yourself and learning about yourself as you're going into, like a young adult and then going into your adult. And it's something that I kind of wish I did experience, but I didn't experience at such a late age, really, to actually start sitting down and just discovering myself.
And do you feel maybe, because of the age your depression came in, as you say, you were 13, which is, when a lot of us, we become teenagers and start actually taking note of ourselves and discovering ourselves. Did you feel that, this was the time now where you're starting to be aware of yourself? Did you feel that you didn't know another side of yourself, so you thought in a way, oh, this is me, or, this is me, but did you feel it's not right, though, that I know as much as that this is me, it isn't the real me?
I think at that age and that young, it was more of I didn't have a clue who I was. So it's not as if I knew this was me. Back then, when I was suffering with depression, it's not as I was stood there like this is me, because I didn't have a clue then.
Yeah.
So I just think for years and years, I was just lost in a sense of not being able to understand myself or discover myself.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because when I reflect on when I was a teenager, and I sort of realised my depression stems back further than I realised how a lot of who I was when I was younger, in the teenage years, wasn't me, and I was lost, but I just didn't realise it, because, as you say, at that age, you don't really, you think a lot different when you become older, don't you, and reflect, and it's just a really,
you're still a kid, really, aren't you?
Yeah, and it is, and it's a challenging time for all of us, discovering ourselves. It's a lifelong journey, but I feel when depression came in to impact mine, and I'm assuming yours, it just made it a hell of a lot harder trying to discover the real you, because it was so strongly influencing that journey.
Yeah, completely, and I think linking onto that as well, it really made me feel lonely. Would you say that's something you felt as well?
I think loneliness is definitely one of the biggest things my depression, one of the biggest impacts depression had on me. And I feel it's a very broad statement, because I feel you can feel lonely in so many different ways. But a couple of the ways I'd say I felt lonely in this journey was that I felt firstly that I was the only one going through this. I thought I was the only one, suffering with these mental health issues and depression, which then which may have led to and then I was isolating, which made me feel lonely, as in I felt like I didn't have people around me. And then it got to the point, I think, in terms of being with people, that I'd literally be in like a room of like loved ones, say my family, friends, and I'd have people all around me, everyone be talking, chatting, having a good time, and I'd just be sat there and I'd just feel like there was no one in the room. I was just on my own, and it was just me with my head. And even, at points when I recognised this, I tried to push myself to like just engage. It felt like it was an out of body experience. Like my depression kicked the real me out, and I was like, I'll handle this. You just watch.
Yeah, and that's really sad. Like, just to put that into perspective, like you're sat in a room full of probably the people who love you more than anything, but you still feel so alone.
No, it wasn't that, and that was the heartbreaking thing. And I remember, when I told loved ones about this, they're like, "Oh, but what do you mean? We've always made clear, we are here." And it's like, I know you have, and I knew that in my heart and in my mind, but my depression didn't want me to feel that. And when it got so strong, it felt like, my lips were moving, but I was muted, and the depression was speaking and acting for me. It was awful.
So as you were saying, you could be sat in a room full of your loved ones who love you more than anything, but you would find it difficult to interact with them because your depression was so overpowering. That would then affect how you're treating them, right?
100%. And because my loved ones were, in a sense, are good for me and good for my mind, my depression was definitely against them, and in a lot of ways it was winning in how it was making me behave towards them. So as I mentioned in the past, I was very moody at points. I was very
moody.
Just a tiny little bit moody. I wouldn't so interact with them often. I'd be very reserved and grumpy and so on. But one of the main ways it impacted me was that my loved ones and my sort of relationships in life as a whole was that I would neglect my loved ones. And what I mean by that is if I knew someone like my mum and nan and granddad, like someone, a true loved one who would always put me first no matter what and would always be there, I'd feel like I'd get bored of that or complacent, because in my mind I feel like, that's not exciting sense, and you've got them, they're not going anywhere.
It's just like you've got them, so you don't need to really worry about them.
Yeah, don't put effort. You've got them in the bag. They're going nowhere. Treat them how you like, and that's all. And even just saying that's awful, because that is the complete opposite way to treat loved ones.
Of course.
But a negative that also spun off that is that I would then chase people who, if I thought they didn't like me or didn't want to be around me, I'd be like, I've got to make them like me, and then that'd lead me to even more to neglecting my loved ones who would be there.
So you would chase those that you're not sure if they like you or not, but you needed to chase to see if they did, and you needed to try and make them like you.
Yeah, it's like I was sort of like seeking their approval, or it's like I like the challenge and the thrill of the chase, in a sense, when it's the complete opposite. Now I feel like, well, if someone doesn't like me, that's fine, that's their choice, but focus on those who do.
Yeah, so I imagine your loved ones, that they would realise this and that would affect them, right?
Well, yeah, of course. They're there, putting all their effort in me, giving me nothing but love, affection, respect, and I'm just giving back grunts every now and then. But then I'm putting in effort with people who who've maybe not been in my life that long, or who don't really like me. I'm sure it mustn't have felt nice. And then, but like anyone, everyone has like a line, and a tolerance, and understandably, completely, not a lot, but some loved ones started to get fed up with me. It's like, we're taking a step back, or just like, I can't be around you the same. But then when I'd seen that, then that didn't instigate the chase, and it's like get them back, and then I'd get them back, and then it's just like, it'd be nice to, for a day, a week, or whatever, like, they're energetic and lovely and bubbly towards them, and they'd be like, just get back in the bag.
That feels like such a roller coaster to be for your loved ones there to actually be on that journey, really, of kind of feeling complacent, and then feeling, it must be so confusing. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
No, I think that's the best word you could have used, because one day it's like, oh, Carl's dead moody, he's so grumpy towards me, why do I keep bothering? And then the next it's like, oh, I'm showering you with love and affection. You'd be like, I feel like you just wouldn't know where you stand with me. It depends, what day you caught me with my depression, but also, how my depression was twisting the relationship in my mind. It was, even now it blows my mind, but I'm really happy to be past that now. So in terms of treating people, how did depression impact the way you treated people?
Yeah, quite differently to you. So mine was that I was putting everyone first.
Yeah.
So by this, I mean that I would do anything for anyone. I would always want people to be happy. I'd always want to help people. I would just put all my energy into everyone else. What, it sounds amazing. It sounds really good. And I love helping people now. I
Yeah.
do. But at a stage where I realised is I was getting exhausted, and I was realising that I'm looking out for, for all of my friends, my loved ones, doing anything for them, making sure they're okay, supporting them in any situations, as I would now anyway. But then I started to realise, like, am I getting the same back?
Yeah.
Who's looking after me? Am I getting that support? And from the majority, I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I had to really learn to, just reel it back a bit.
Yeah, and I think something that you mentioned there is really important. Would you say that, you were spending all this time focusing on, your friends and your loved ones, but who was focusing on you? You weren't. Would you say you weren't even focusing on you?
No one. So I was like neglecting myself for everyone else. It sounds really nice when you say that, but it's too nice that it's not nice.
And how did that? Would you say that impacted you? Then, when you were putting all this effort in, and I'm assuming sometimes people in a sense threw it back in your face, or abused your good nature and your trust. How did that impact you?
Well, it hurt.
Yeah.
It was really difficult. Like, I'd always find it very difficult because I'd always seek to help, like my friends, and if it just like got thrown back in my face, it would hurt, and I wouldn't really know how to deal with that.
Yeah, and do you think your depression wanted that? Because just going, I know you very well, and I know the way you put your loved one first is incredible, and I know, it's one of your, amazing natural traits. But do you feel your depression knew that and used it against you in a sense then?
Yeah, completely.
And so by doing that, do you feel that made you maybe feel like you were losing faith in people as well? So you maybe wouldn't seek to do that as much, and then that'd bring you down as well.
Yeah, I think I just got fed up as well. And it's like now, like, I'd still say I'd do anything for any of, like my close friends and my loved ones. But I'd always make sure that I am looking out for me as well.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't just go all in, guns blazing.
So in a sense, what do you do different now? Do you feel you're much more of a two-way street than a one-way street?
Yeah, completely. So, if I've got a friend and they need my help, I'd help them. But again, if I needed help and I went for them, could you just do me a favour? Have you got time to just listen to me, etc. And they didn't have that time, then it would be a bit, it'd just be a bit exhausting.
Yeah, well, every situation is different, and it's hard to just give a general example.
Yeah.
But would you say that now in a sense, the line, and you can read it in the sense of, okay, they're not giving me back what I'm giving them, so I'm gonna take a step back. And do you feel now that people have to earn your trust and your time, and the same goes for you with them?
Yeah, I think what you've just said, like, it's completely a two-way street. Every friendship is, every relationship is, and what I give to my friends, and I'd want the same back.
Yeah.
But more so, like, I know that I need to give them just as much as I'm expecting them to give me.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a two-way street. And I always go in, like you just said there, I always go in with like 60%, and, I'll support them like forever. But yeah, it's just maintaining that.
Yeah. I think something that just came to my mind as well on the topic, interacting with people and so on. I think something my depression really impacted, and it's still something, I'm working on today and I'm really trying to develop is my social skills.
Yeah.
I think, because I was isolating so much and lost in a sense my interaction with people, I feel like I forgot how to be with people, if that sort of makes sense.
What do you mean you forgot how to be with people?
I it sounds so daft, but I think like I didn't know how to talk to people. And say if I got in a social situation, I feel like I wouldn't know how to hold or maintain a conversation. I didn't, in a sense, I'd feel like I wouldn't feel comfortable in silence. I'd feel like, oh, you've got to keep speaking, but then, I wouldn't feel like, they can make a conversation just as much as you can. I'd be like, oh, we should all be speaking, having the time of our lives, but I'm overthinking it, and now I don't know what to say and think. And what I've realised in myself now is that I feel that I'm very good in a sense at listening to people and talking to people about them, but I am awful at speaking about myself. So, say if you asked me, what I'd done today, I'd probably give you like a quick sentence or two, and then ask you, and then, you might be able to give a paragraph. And even still now, when people speak to you, I listen, and I'm sort of fascinated when people can speak about themselves in a nice way, and just like, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
I have no idea how to talk about myself, and I feel, that stemmed back because, for so long I didn't care about myself, and I thought I was worthless. Even still now, there's the little bit in the background that's still got that feeling, and I can still feel it impact me today, where I just don't or can't talk about myself because like I ain't got that confidence still, but it's something I'm still pushing.
And that's the thing, like that's something that you're still developing now. And if you look what we're doing now, speaking on this podcast, like that is speaking about yourself, and that's just helping you with that self-development. What's amazing.
No, it is, and this, like you said, this podcast is probably helping me in more ways than I realise. So as another point, I know in the previous episodes we spoke about isolation, and I spoke about how I was isolating and cancelling plans a lot, and you spoke about how you were isolating, and then your dad called you out on it.
Yeah.
But what I don't think we discussed was what happened after that. So to go over that, your dad called you out, you were isolating a lot. How did you move forward from that?
So as you just mentioned, from that point when I was isolating for months, and then my dad called me out on that, I actually went the opposite end of the scale.
Yeah.
So instead of, sitting in my room isolating pretty much all the time, I would make sure I never, ever am alone.
Yeah.
So I would make sure I have plans every day, every night, with friends, going out for a meal, if it's just walking, something, anything. I would make sure that I am not stuck in on my own.
Yeah.
But that's also not good.
So that's what I was going to ask, in a sense, I'm sure it felt good that, you're very busy and active, and that must have relieved your mind a lot, because it was distracted a lot. But what would then happen when the time came you were on your own?
I'd struggle. I would really struggle, because I'd be overthinking I think because I was isolating for so long, and then I went to the opposite. And then when I did have those nights on my own, alone, I'd overthink then, like, because I'm isolating, and then I would really struggle. It would make me really frustrated. I'd get upset. It'd be prime time really for me to go down.
Yeah. And do you feel, because you say your life was, now you were busy, say 99.5% of the time, which means you were, truly alone with your head a lot less than you were. Did you feel that your depression, when it finally got you on its own, went even, in a sense, more into overdrive than it had previously, because that it had to make the most of this little window of opportunity that you were given it, in a sense?
That's what it definitely felt like, yeah. Like it was just, he just seen an opportunity and he just went for it.
And did your depression at that point start to feel a lot worse to yourself then? Did it feel more intense?
Yeah, so when I think back over the years, when I did really have like significantly really down days, it's always been on those occasions where, I might not have been really isolating on my own for quite a long time, and then I would, and that's where I would just go off the deep end, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I'd really suffer.
Yeah, I think one that you used to mention there is, I think balance is, it's not easy, especially when you go through depression, but balance is very, like, for me, reflecting on myself, I wish I could have balanced things out a lot more, but I also know it was really hard to be alone at points.
Yeah, and I think it's just something that, like, I'm even self-developing now. Like, I sometimes, I make sure that I take time to myself, even though it's easier now, and but it's still a challenge, and it's always going to be that challenge. And for me, I've seen it as like, it is a challenge, and I want to develop myself, and I want to be like truly comfortable, just sitting on my own and just in my own thoughts, just relaxing. But that's something, I'm striving every day.
And do you get now a sense of accomplishment? Sometimes, maybe not all the time, but sometimes say you're sat on your own in your room, you sort of sit back and like, oh my, I've just sat with myself, for an hour, or I've actually had. It sounds so simple. I've just sat peacefully with my mind, knowing how your mind used to be. Yeah,
and I think it's amazing. When you don't often really reflect back on, the things you do, but when I do think back, like I could just sit there for 10 minutes, I've just sat here. I just wanted 10 minutes to myself, just to relax, just lie there, close my eyes, empty thoughts. But to me, that's everything, because I was suffering for like years and years, like 10 years, where I couldn't really do that.
No, again, it sounds so simple, but it's truly an amazing development you've made and strived. It's incredible.
So with the effects that we've discussed over the past 2 episodes, would you say that these have influenced or impacted certain actions and decisions that you've made through your depression journey?
They definitely have, yeah. I feel my mind was in such a negative space when I was going through depression, and because my depression had such an influential control over me, that I'd probably say 90 to 95% of the time my thoughts and feelings were very negative, and I feel my actions and decisions were reflected in that, because in a sense they were being fed very strongly again from my depression.
So with those negative actions that you carried out during your depression journey, were they influenced by certain like environments you were in, or certain people you were with?
Definitely, I feel, any thoughts or actions we have, there's a lot of factors in a sense that feed into them. And for me, my depression was a very strongly negative one. And I agree with what you're saying. I feel environments do too. So, the friends you're with. But also I think one of the main ones for me was getting drunk. So there was times when I got drunk and made, in a sense, worse mistakes than I would have, say, sober. But now I reflect on that, I realise that I have to take responsibility for that fact, because somewhere within me I knew that, in a sense, getting drunk was a risk, because I made very bad decisions more than once. So, and within myself, drunk or sober, no matter how depressed I became, I still knew somewhere the difference between right and wrong. But what I'm realising to do now is to take responsibility for that, and say to myself, okay, yes, you made those mistakes, and it was you, not own that fact.
Yeah, that's really inspiring though, that you are taking responsibility for what you've done, and it's not easy to do.
No, on this journey, there's still some mistakes today that I'm still dealing with and trying to come at true peace with. But in a sense, I understand now it's a journey, and I'm trying to own my past instead of letting my past own me.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that, I feel like, as you mentioned before, we discussed a lot of different effects over these past 2 episodes that our depression had on us. Some similar and some very different. So do you think that helps show how depression can affect so many different areas of your life?
Depression definitely did affect, I would say, all areas of my life, but it probably was. It felt like it, but it probably wasn't. But no, it does. I think it affects a lot more than I realised at the time, and the chain effect it has on, your loved ones or the people they know, etc. It's just like a waterfall effect, really.
Like a bit of a ripple effect, it spreads out.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think with the effects that we have discussed, during this episode and our last episode, I think it's worth mentioning that we still have challenges with these today as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're always going to be working on and developing, because that's what we are striving to do, isn't it? We're just the self-development and just always being aware as well.
Yeah.
And just working at it.
Yeah, in a sense, flipping those negatives now into positives and learning the lessons from them.
Exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be a nice little place to lead this episode.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for listening to this episode. If you could give it a like and a share, that means so much. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications button to keep up to date with any of our future episodes that we release. If you have any comments or thoughts at all, just drop them below or put them on any of our social medias.
Yeah, and we're available on all social media platforms under the username @LTPodcastOnline. We're also available on all podcast directories such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube. If you check out our description below, it's got all our information, links, and more in there. And as Dad said, you mean Dad?
Dad.
As Dan said, thanks very much for listening, guys, and we hope to catch you in the next episode, and take it easy.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. Thanks.